If your plants are looking rough, they're melting, or they just don't look like you'd expect them to look, don't jump straight for the deficiency charts. In a Walstad tank, most deficiencies aren't actually deficiencies at all. They can simply be melt, transition, or just the wrong type of plant for the type of system we're using. Today, we're going to talk about what's actually happening in the system and why the plants you choose have more of an impact than any deficiency chart ever will. Let's start with one of the biggest misunderstandings in the aquarium hobby. If you've bought plants and right after you plant them, they start to melt, they start to look all tatty, this isn't deficiency. This is the plants transitioning. The plants have been grown out of water, and now the leaves have all been built to exist in air, and now all of a sudden they're underwater. So the plant is literally going to pull all the nutrients out of them leaves, everything invested in it. It's going to get rid of them leaves, and then it's going to put the energy it's pulled out of them into new leaves that are designed to live underwater. They were grown to live underwater, and they've grown to do what needs to be done underwater. Now it brings me on to the second point. What actually is a plant? Because when people say my plants are melting, like, what sort of plants are we talking about? Not all plants behave the same way, and not all plants want the same type of environment, and not all plants are compatible with the Walstad method. Understanding different types of plants matters to you far more than memorizing nutrient deficiencies off a nutrient deficiency chart, which, you know, some people say aren't all that efficient anyway. We've all heard the same advice over and over again. Set up your Walstad method aquarium and then plant loads of fast growing stem plants to absorb all the nutrients out the water. We hear it over and over, time and time again. But the problem is stem plants want high CO2, high nutrients, high light. It just wants a high energy system. And a Walstad method tank is a low energy system. So the metabolism of the plants and the metabolism of the system aren't compatible. So ultimately you're going to end up with long leggy stem plants with no leaves at the bottom because they've all stripped, because there isn't enough light and they're not getting enough CO2 and they're not getting enough nutrients. So they're not in thrive mode, they're in survive mode, and they're always going to look ropey. So when we talk about fast growing plants, what type of fast growing plants are actually ideal for the Walstad method? And the answer is the ideal plants for a Walstad method aquarium are an ideal fast growing plants for any low tech, low energy system. And that's floating plants. And I keep banging on about floating plants. Diana Walstad has got a section of the book called The Aerial Advantage, because floating plants aren't limited by CO2 in the water, and because they're not limited by the light that are above the water, so they're getting far greater CO2 and light, they can absolutely purify the water. They can pull all the nutrients out of the water, they pull all the excess out of the water, and they'll grow like mad. But then it's your responsibility to make sure that you're thinning your floating plants out. So the plants beneath, which mostly in the Walstad method aquarium, you want shade plants. You don't want fast growing plants in the water column. That's the job of your floating plants, and that's the first advantage of having floating plants in the Walstad method aquarium, is the aerial advantage. The fact that they purify the water because they're growing aggressively above it, and they're not limited by anything within the water, so they can carry on growing even if there's a limiting factor within the water column. And the second advantage is literally the duckweed index, which basically is, if we're running a low-tech aquarium or a low-energy system like the Walstad method, if we see deficiencies in our floating plants, we know it's not the light, because it's above the water, it's right next to the light, so it's getting enough light, it's getting enough CO2 because it's in the atmosphere, so it's pulling unlimited CO2 out the atmosphere, so we know it's a nutrient deficiency. So we know our aquarium is nutrient deficient, and we know we need to step in and do something about that nutrient deficiency. Otherwise, these are canaries in the mine shaft. These tell you that there's nutrient deficiency. If we don't deal with the fast growing plants getting nutrient deficient, I guarantee you the rest of your plants are going to start showing deficiencies. So what are the other ideal candidates for a Walstad method aquarium? The first category I absolutely love, and that's rosette plants. And this is one of the main reasons why I love the Walstad method aquarium, because I love crypts, I love swords, I love pontigeton type plants, I love crinums. Any of these big grow out of a rosette. I love them plants. They're my favourite plants, and they're ideal for soil substrate Walstad method style aquarium, slow growing, and just want to knock about and enjoy their lives in this mild, just easy going energy system. Also the grass type plants, and a lot of these have that CO2 hack where they don't need atmospheric CO2, so even when the CO2 is depleted in the tank, they're just going to keep going because they'll just pull carbon out the water. It'll lower your KH, but we can buffer our KH. That's something we've discussed in previous videos. The KH we can manually keep on top of, and that's kind of like injecting CO2, but it's a different type of carbon. But a lot of these plants will just pull it out the water column, and they don't care, they just carry on growing. These are the grass type plants, or if you want to sound posh in front of your mates, you can say stoloniferous plants. And there you go, there's an exciting scientific name for you. These are like val or dwarf sage or helantium. These type of plants that just throw out little chains and they just spread all around your tank, and they get in through all the other plants like you prefer, and they start causing a riot in your tank. These are the ones I'm talking about. They're an absolute riot, and I love them. And then, as we talked about before, we've got the CO2 hack plants. These are like your Hygrophila polysperma. Hygrophila polysperma is one of the stem plants that absolutely thrives in a Walstad tank because it doesn't want it doesn't need high CO2 levels. It can pull CO2, or it can pull carbon out the water. It doesn't need to be hammered with light. It'll still go in moderate light. It can feed its nutrients better than most stem plants, so it's more robust, it's more resilient. It's the same. The likes of Rotala, Ludwigia repens, I think that's another CO2 hack plant. Bacopa caroliniana. There's the 3 or 4 stem plants that every fish keeper who wants to keep stems should start with. Is your Rotala rotundifolia, Hygrophila polysperma, your Ludwigia repens, and your Bacopa caroliniana. Start with them 4 and you'll love stems. They're still a pain in the bum, but they're my favourite stems, and the ones most fish keepers tend to have the most success with. And let's not forget my favourite type of plant that I always bang on about and do everyone's head in, floating plants. I don't recommend duckweed. It's the best floating plant in the world. Possibly that's Azolia, but we can't keep it in the UK, it's banned, so our invasive nutter is duckweed. And then we've got floating plants that I recommend. We've got Salvinia, we've got Amazon frogbit, we've got mini water lettuce, and we've also got red roof floaters. Get these 4 floating plants rocking in your little aerial advantage with your duckweed index, and they look absolutely amazing. The red roof floaters will tell you if there's lots of nitrogen in your tank, it'll go green. As the nutrients are going down, it'll start going red, and it just, all the plants in there, they'll just, the canaries in the mine shaft, they'll tell you what's going underneath the water column, and they're an early warning sign, so you know you can step in if we're starting to see a nutrient deficiency in our aquarium. What's not to love? So before you start assuming that you've got nutrient deficiencies in your tank, make sure your tank's not new and your plants aren't new and the plants aren't melting, and make sure that it's not just because of nutrient deficiencies, it's because they're the right plants for your aquarium. If they're the wrong plants for your aquarium, some of the stem plants will just go ropey, leggy, they'll just melt. You'll end up with a long stem with a little tip at the top where they're getting that. At the top of the aquarium, there's that microzone where the CO2 is diffusing faster and there's better light, and they'll just grow a stem to there and they'll stay there. But the rest of it will just look like a chicken leg. So there you go, guys. That's a quick look at plants melting deficiencies in the Walstad method. These are specifics to the Walstad method. I know I can go on all day about deficiencies, and honestly, you can tie yourself up in knots and you can look at deficiencies and it might not be a deficiency, it might just be something else locked out or something else overdosed. So making a video like that is a bit complicated for me. Go and check out Bentley Pascoe. He's the expert on them type of things, or Stephen P. They're the type of guys you need to be asking questions about deficiencies. I will address nutrient deficiencies in Walstad method aquariums, but my expertise is not nutrient deficiencies in general. If you've got issues with that, go and speak to them or go and watch their content. They know far more about that topic than I do. Okay guys, take care and good luck with your aquarium.